think I'm just gonna rail jump around for a bit and head off. Actually, maybe I could do a quick explanation on rail jumping. Maybe you should start from the basics. Maybe I'll like split up into 2 videos and do one video on the basics and then one video on some more advanced tricksies. Rail jumping is a lot of fun, right? Like it's pretty much what makes this mod. Like if there was no rail jumping, this would be a pretty shitty game mode, because honestly, Insta, I know a lot of people in OA play Insta-Gib, like a lot of people, and I don't really understand why, because it's just really, it's really boring, it's really bland. Like, all people do is they just like jump, they just like jump forward and like, yeah, we're doing it, we're gonna capture the flag, and then they get railed because they're moving really slowly. Like even if they're strafe jumping, they're still moving really slowly and they're still a really open target. Then they get railed and they're like, oh my god, campers, what the fuck? And they like yell at you. Maybe that's just Gem's Insta-Gib where everyone just like complains about campers. Which is pretty funny. I don't know, like I'm the kind of person who just like goes on that server just to camp and like piss people off, so maybe I'm not a very good person. But I don't know, like I just think like vanilla Insta-Gib is really boring. This Insta-Gib is exciting, right? Like look at this speed. It's awesome. Yeah, I think I'll do the tutorial, or I don't know if you can even call it that, on this map. This is like the classic rctf map, right? Like you have a nice open path to rail jump. You have walls to do tricksy things on. Alright, this area is never really used. I guess you can use it to like camp, but whatever. That's another thing about rctf is like, sure they could camp, but like you go so fast you can approach them from a lot of different angles and catch them off guard. So I mean, even though like I guess camping is a legitimate strategy, you can't get by only by camping. Right, there's a lot more to it than just good aim, which is good for me because I have really shitty aim. I think my aim used to be better, but even when my aim was better, it was still never that good. Like pretty much all other top level players, so maybe not all of them, but a lot of them would have better aim than me. And usually when we do like those like 1v1s, often I beat people with better aim than me just because of movement or making the right decisions, which is also really important. But I think people often kind of forget about that. They overvalue aim and don't really prioritize the other stuff. All right, so let's just do a quick rundown. So at the most basic level, you have 2 kinds of rail jumps. Right, you have the rail jump where you just shoot the ground and you go sort of a medium height, or maybe even call it a low height. Right, so this kind of rail jump is lower but a bit safer. Right, and the other kind of rail jump is one where you jump. Right, so you want to jump ever so slightly before you rail. So it's kind of like it's exactly like a rocket jump. Right, so you jump and rail almost at the same time, but you jump ever so slightly before you rail, just so that you have the upper momentum of your jump to give you like a huge boost in height, right? So this is without jumping, it's tiny. This is with jumping, it's pretty huge. The main difference between rocket jumping and rail jumping, or I guess one difference would be rocket jumping, you pretty much always jump, right? And not only does it reduce the damage you take, but it gives you a lot more height and a lot more speed or whatever. It gives you lots of good things. Whereas in rail jumping, since you don't really care about taking damage, you can do it without jumping, and it's still incredibly useful, like little guys like this. Alright, so those are 2 kinds of rail jumps, like without jump and with jump. And once you have those two kinds, you can break it down even further with angles. And you can't really like break it down into two categories because there's infinitely many different angles you can shoot from. So if you just do it straight down, you're just going to go straight up. It's not the most useful thing. I mean, you can hold forward and you can still go forward a little bit, but I mean, it gives you the maximum amount of height, right? This gives you the maximum amount of height, but it gives you 0 speed or very, very low speed. But the reason why you would do this is either to get to a high place, or if you're trying to rail someone, if you want to get into a nice position to get a shot off. So it's mostly for railing people and for getting good heights. But what you can do is if you flick backwards and then you shoot at an angle, right? If you shoot really far away, you'll go, so it's without jump, it's with jump. All of a sudden you start transferring your vertical momentum into horizontal momentum. And maybe the first thing you can notice is that, okay, if you shoot here, or if you shoot like here, you go really far, and the further you go out, right, you don't really go as far, right? If you go really, really far away, you don't go anywhere, and as you get closer, you go a little bit. That's because the reason, or the way you want to think of a rail jump is you want to think of it as when it hits the ground, it creates a miniature explosion that only you are affected by. Right? So if you're at the outskirts of the explosion, right? So if the explosion is centered where I'm shooting, if you're at the outskirts of the explosion, you're going to take a lot less knockback. Whereas opposed, if you're very close to the center of the explosion, you're going to take a lot more knockback. So that's something that determines how much knockback you get, but also what's more important maybe is the angle. Right, so generally if you want to get speed and height, you just throw it at an approximate 45-degree angle, and you can get kind of the best of both worlds, right? This is kind of like the standard rail jump is at approximately a 45-degree angle. And here I'm doing the jumps, but you don't really have to do the jumps. You can do stuff like this, where you don't go as low, but, or I mean, you don't go nearly as high, but it's a little bit safer, right? So if you do the jump, you're left really open, right? You can't do anything when you're stuck in the air. So you look at the jump, we have 1,000, 2,000, like maybe like 2.5 seconds where you can't do anything. Whereas if you don't use the jump, it's like 1.5 seconds. So you get like there's like, so you have 1.5 seconds to basically change, right? So if you do it like this, all of a sudden you can dodge, right? You can dodge right away, or you can go for another rail jump. Whereas if you go for the jump, you're stuck in the air for a long period of time, and you're leaving yourself wide open. So you really have to judge whether you want to do the no jump rail jump or the full jump rail jump. And this is something that just depends on the situation, right? There's no best way to rail jump. It's all depending on the situation and also your play style. Like maybe if you're more like rail heavy kind of player, maybe you use more jumps because you want to shoot more people, or maybe you'll use this one so you can start dodging quicker, right? And a lot of it just depends on play style and as well as situation. So I think that wraps up rail jumping just off the ground. Alright, so actually maybe there's one more thing. So we did the two basic things, but there's actually one last thing is you can actually, if you do like the jumping rail jump, where you jump first, you can actually delay when you shoot and actually vary your height as much as you want. So right, so I can actually vary my height. So if I do it at the same time, I get this much height. If I delay it a little bit, I get like a medium height. So it's less height than without jumping, but it's more height, or it's more height without jumping, less height than with a normal jump. So you do a little bit of jump, delay it, and you can vary your height. And a lot of the reasons why this might be useful is, let's say you want to peek over the edge to shoot somebody. If you do it without jump, you can't actually get over the edge. But if you do it with like a half jump, right, so you jump a little bit and then rail, all of a sudden you can make it over the edge and you land quicker, so then you can start dodging. If you're to do a full jump, well, now you're leaving yourself really wide open and you're probably going to get killed. Right? So if you do it ever so slightly, you can land faster and start railing and start dodging. And of course you can also vary this with angle, right? So you can kind of do neat little tricks. So you have a lot of freedom, and really the best way is just to practice, right? Practice the different techniques. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up rail jumping on the ground. Maybe to recap, we have, well, angle is important, no angle, it's like that. We have no jump like this, and we have full jump like this, but we also have half jump like this. I mean, half jump takes a little bit more time to set up, but you can get the height that you want. So the half jump is really situational. It also doesn't give you as much speed. It's mostly just, you just use that for getting the right height. Okay, and now I'll talk a little bit about rail jump strings, and maybe I'll start that off by how I personally love to start off going down the center. I know a lot of like the newer players, like they just go, right? Like they just go, and there's nothing wrong with that, except that it's suboptimal. Like, I mean, it's good if you're in a rush, you're like, okay, I really need to get over there fast, I'm just gonna go. But if you have time to set up, so let's suppose you just spawned and you have time to set up, what you can do is you can actually use the wall. And this is something that I do a lot, actually, is I use the wall for my first rail jump, and you can see how much more speed that gets, right? So all I'm doing here is I'm facing the wall, I'm just holding backwards and shooting. So like that, I'm just holding backwards and shooting. No jump, just holding backwards and shooting. I aim slightly down just to give me a little bit of height, but that's about it. I mean, you probably, yeah, you need to give yourself a little bit of height. So I aim slightly down. Alright, and then right as I'm landing, I jump and do another rail jump. So I do like this, jump, and then rail jump. And you can get a lot of height. I mean, I guess you don't need to do the jump, you can just do something like that, but I think it's a lot easier just to do the jump. Oh, that time I didn't do the jump. So this is hugely important, is using a wall to start off your rail jump combo. Because there's always going to be a wall for you to start off your rail jump combo. And it doesn't always have to be a perpendicular wall like that one, it could be a, I guess, parallel wall like this one, right? So you can do something like that. I mean, it doesn't give you as much speed, but it does change your direction. Oh, that was kind of shitty, but whatever. You get the idea. So you can do neat stuff like, oh shoot, let's try this again. Alright, so if you use this wall, you can get a lot of speed. You can even just go like straight over that way. I didn't do it quite right, but maybe I'll do it later. Alright, so that's usually how I like starting off rail jumps, and maybe you're wondering, maybe if you have a really curious mind, you're like, okay, why should I use the wall to start instead of the ground? Right? Why are walls so good? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like I mean, you're using a perpendicular surface as opposed to a non-perpendicular surface. That kind of makes sense, but it's actually a little bit more than that. So the reason, maybe I'll go in third person. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of the flag. So the reason why walls are so good, and you really need to use them in your rail jump game, is because imagine the rail has to come out of your rail gun. Now the distance between your rail gun and the wall is extremely close, right? Look at how close. I'm basically holding the rail gun right up next to it. So maybe we could say it's like 5 units away. Whereas if you look down, well, the rail still comes out of my torso, even though it looks like the rail gun is pointing directly at the ground. The rail still comes out of my torso, so it's actually a lot further away from the ground. Even if I'm just facing straight down, the rail has some distance to travel before it even hits the ground. So that means that the rail jump explosion is going to be further away from your middle, from like your center if you shoot the ground, and it'll be closer to you if you shoot something right next to you. So maybe like this is 5 units away from the wall, but your center is maybe like 20, or maybe even like, yeah, maybe like 25 units away from the ground. And so this distance, or this difference in distances, is what makes well, since you're closer to the explosion radius against the wall, you're going to get a lot more power out of it. So not only are you sending yourself in the direction you want to, you're actually getting more power. And for this exact same reason is why you want to use the walls as much as you can, right? Using the walls will give you a lot more speed than if you use the ground. The tricky thing is it can be hard to use the walls all the time. But you want to use it as much as possible. Right. The other thing about using, well, I guess one nice thing about walls is you can get a lot of height, right? You can just sort of shoot and you get really high and it's really awesome. And yeah. But the other thing about walls is you can actually use them to change your trajectory, which is extremely important if you're trying to be hard to hit. And that's pretty much all what rail jumping is avoiding getting hit, right? You want to make yourself as difficult to hit as possible. And so to do that, you will need to try to pick a very unpredictable trajectory. You need to have what I call a rail jump string. So you want to have a very unpredictable rail jump string. And if you just go straight like this is extremely predictable, right? You're going straight, you're just going up and down, it's very predictable. Even if you do this, which I see a lot of lower level RCTF players do, or newer RCTF players do, is they just, you know, hold down the mouse button and they just get the perfect angle and they just go flying down, right? I guess it's pretty fast. It's decently fast, but it suffers from two main problems. So the first problem is you have an extremely predictable trajectory. I mean, even though you're not going high, usually higher is easier to hit, but even though you're not going high, you're still extremely easy to hit because your trajectory is extremely predictable. The other problem with it is that you can't see where you're going. So I mean, if you're just going in a straight line, that is an issue, but what is an issue is that you can't retaliate if someone is shooting at you. So you're pretty much setting yourself up as a sitting duck, right? Since the enemy knows you can't retaliate, they're just gonna stand still, take careful aim, and kill you with no mercy. They won't feel a shred of pity for you. They'll just kill you, and that's obviously a bad thing. So this is extremely predictable. So what you do want to do is you want to, well, look where you're going so you can retaliate, but also try to send yourself towards a wall so you can send yourself at an unpredictable trajectory. So maybe I'll give you an example. I can use, like this wall, I can go straight. If I angle it like this, I just go straight. Or I can use it to change my direction completely, right? If I aim it directly at the wall, I go at a completely different path. And stuff like that, and having those mix-ups available to you and knowing that you have those options, and as long as you use those options, can make it really hard to hit you, right? The opponent has to kind of guess, right? They can't just aim here. They're like, if they know you always go straight, they'll just put their mouse where they think you're going and shoot you as you cross over their cursor. But if they don't know you're going straight, if they know that you like to bounce around a lot, they have to make a guess, right? They have to guess, okay, is he going straight or is he going to change direction as he goes up to that wall? And having to make that guess means that they're going to take time processing what you're doing, and it means they're going to have to, you know, they can't move their cursor proactively, they have to move it reactively. They have to watch where you're going before they actually shoot, unless they make some mad reads on what you're doing. So that's one reason why the wall is good. So you can use the wall to go sideways. So you can use the wall to change your horizontal trajectory, or you can either go straight or you can go to away from the wall. But you can also use it to change your vertical trajectory. So something that I see a lot of people do is they just go up. They're like, fuck yeah, I'm super high, it's awesome and cool and it looks like I'm flying, whatever. Now I don't usually like doing this unless, let's suppose they're running off with my flag and I just need to get high to see them. Then I might do something like this, get a good view, try to blast them, give my teammates some time to go up there. Right, that's really the only time when I would go high. I would go high like that. But if you spectate me a lot, you'll notice what I really like doing is I go up a little bit and then I shoot myself back down. Right, and this means they have to guess, okay, when is he going to shoot himself back down? And often that sudden burst of going back down can catch people off guard and make it really hard to hit you. So you can go up a little bit, go back down, and then jump, and then turn your rail jump into something else. Right. Yeah, so a lot of what I do is rail jumping myself back into the ground and then doing a jump right after to preserve my momentum. Right, by doing a jump right after, I have this option, right? I can either jump and rail jump, or I can just jump, right? I mean, you don't always have to rail jump. Like I can do something like this and then rail jump. That was kind of a bad example, but right? I can jump and then rail jump again. And the advantage of jumping is, well, A, it's a mix-up, and B, it gives you time to shoot people, right? If I aim myself down, I can blast somebody and then rail jump again. So this is another important thing to do. But yeah, I guess what I did there is I actually used two things, right, that I already talked about. I use A, the wall, but I also use it to send me down, right? I don't even get any height at all. I just blast myself for speed and to make myself a little bit harder to hit. So I can use the pillar, use the ground, use the wall. And putting all this together is really when rail jumping shines. Right, so it's not just about one or two techniques, it's using everything. It's using the wall, it's using the ground, it's using changing horizontal trajectory, but also and also changing your vertical trajectory. I think that about wraps it up. I think my biggest suggestion for pretty much anybody is just to join this I don't remember the name, this instant cookie server. Alright, just join the instant cookie server. There's probably not going to be anybody in it because there's no bots, but just join it and practice rail jumping. Like just come to one of these maps and just rail jump around. Right, I find, like, personally, I find it like pretty relaxing. Right, you just pop in the server, rail jump around. You don't, like, nobody's shooting you. You just get to practice rail jumping. And probably, you know, people will come by, right? If they see there's somebody in the server, they'll drop by. Right. Oh yeah, one other neat thing, which is maybe a more advanced thing, is if you like blast past a pillar, you can actually shoot the back of it and give yourself an extra nudge, right? You don't always have to hit the side of a wall. You can actually hit the back of a wall, which is pretty neat, but it's kind of tricky to do. Is there anything else? I can't really think of anything right now. Yeah, climbing walls is fun. Yeah, if you want to climb a wall, it all just depends on where you set your cursor. I think the way that I do it is I just aim my cursor like right at the crack. So right now I'm standing and I just look at the crack of when the wall meets the floor. Oh wait, maybe that's not good. Let's see. Yeah, I think I don't know. I guess I just have the feel for it. When you're plasma jumping, you want to use the crack. Right? You always aim right there for plasma jumping. I think for rail, if you want to use a railgun to climb the wall, you shoot the ground first, and then you aim slightly toward the wall. So I aim ground and then slightly up. And maybe I don't want to just hold the mouse button down. Yeah, there, I'm not holding the mouse button down. Yeah, and you always hold forward the whole time. So you just hold forward and shoot whenever you start touching the wall. And you can go as high as you want. Yeah. The other thing is, maybe if you want to get up there, you can actually use this pillar just by again, it's kind of like this, right? There I aimed only slightly toward the pillar, but if you aim more towards the pillar, you can actually send yourself off and jump on another ledge, which is pretty neat. So there's there's a lot of really cool things you can do with rail jumping. Like rail jumping gives you so many options. Like so many options become available to you, and all that you really have to do is just practice. Like practice the common rail jump strings for a map that you're interested in. This one's fairly easy. I think. Well, I guess if you just watch from the beginning, you'll see that I think at the very beginning I do a bunch of like common rail jump strings. Oh shoot, I messed that one up. I think I'll try. So this map you really have two options. You can either go down one of the two sides, or you can actually go straight down the middle. Right. Oh, I didn't make it. By doing something like that. So I'll use that trick, and then oh yeah, I made it. Yeah, I think maybe you do need to. Oh fuck. I think maybe you do need to use the pillar. There we go. Yeah, something like that. And I guess the advantage of the middle is I think might be slightly faster. Well, I mean it's less. I mean you can just go from it right away. Maybe it's slightly faster. I'm not sure. But the disadvantage is that if somebody's like trying to look. I guess if somebody's in the middle to cover you, it's like really easy pickings, right? But the middle is a really good option that people often neglect. People usually just run down one of the two sides, which is fine, right? I mean, rail jumping is all about the mix-ups, right? You don't want to do the same path every time because it'll be predictable. People will know where to look, and they'll be able to set up before you even start your rail jump string. So just be unpredictable, right? Practice lots of different paths. I mean, different paths will be useful in different situations, right? Maybe, you know, I know there's the bad guy's about to score. I could go like this, and I have loads of time to maybe stop it. Whereas if you go down the side, you don't you spend a lot of time without being able to see the enemy flag. So I mean the different situations will be good for different things, but I think almost more importantly, it's just being unpredictable. You just want to do things that the opponent's not going to expect, or you want to at least force them to try to guess what you're going to do. All right, I think that wraps this guy up. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm gonna post this guy on YouTube, so I'll say what all the YouTubers say is, you know, throw me a like or a subscribe if you want. I think I'll be uploading some game commentaries, or instead of something like this where all I do is just talk for like however long. Instead, I'll be playing a game and try to explain my thought process as I'm going through it. So, well, until next time, I guess I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.